So, as a formerly independent woman that took on a little bit of the feminist values and wanted to be, a strong entrepreneur, feminist woman, I, not be, because to me, and it means something different to everyone, but to me, I think feminism was about becoming an independent woman and being able to, get by in my life for myself and do well with that. And this journey began for me years ago. I've been on YouTube about 8 years now and making videos. And so, in the back of my mind, there was a little bit of that of entrepreneurial spirit. I wouldn't call it feminism. I would say that it was very loosely tied to that, because I never really felt super strongly about feminism growing up. But I definitely felt strongly about being an independent woman, which can coincide with that. And, when I started this channel, I didn't necessarily have an end goal in mind, and I didn't even necessarily have money as the goal in mind. I just started creating, and I was glad that I did. It led me down to the path that I'm on now. And one of the things that I've noticed that could be of use to you, if you are a woman that has gone down, say, a independent entrepreneurial path, maybe even feel strongly about feminism and things like that, and has kind of fought for the rights of your sexual freedom and the revolution of or the evolution of traditional housewifery into this free woman, essentially, who's able to do whatever she wants. She's able to have a big house, have help financially, physically, go wherever she wants, things like that. That might be some of the things that you've achieved or want to achieve. And those are, I think, some popular goals in today's society. A lot of women, because I'm speaking to women here, that's my, that's because I'm a woman, and these are the things that I know about for myself, right? So I can't necessarily speak to what I don't know. So those were some of the things that I wanted for myself. Not necessarily in starting this channel, but just as part of my pattern, I guess you could say. And I know that for some women, that's part of their pattern, and they've been very successful at it, becoming the entrepreneur, becoming independent, having their own house, not needing a man to pay for anything necessarily, or at least having that freedom there where they, you pay for your own life. You have it there already. For me, and this is really what I wanted to share with you about my story, is that for me, even though I wanted those things, and still do, financial independence and security, things like that, and freedom to do, to go traveling, just to drive, just to do those things. I think for me, the reason that I didn't follow that path rigidly, I followed it loosely, because like I say, I've been on YouTube now for 8 years, and I've been here or there and made a bit of money here or there, but I've never become, I guess, what you would call a businesswoman. because in the back of my mind, I always had this feeling that I wanted a strong connection with my partner, whoever he may be. From a young age, I would think, act, dream, write about how I wanted that feeling, or just live out that feeling of what it meant to me to have a good partner. And I will say, a lot of this I was doing subconsciously. I wasn't saying to myself consciously, this is what I want. It was almost like I was just acting this out as I was a younger girl, teenager, let's say. I would just kind of act out in my mind the kind of man that I wanted in my life. And it wasn't very specific details, it was just specific details to me. Things like them being affectionate. And, you know, in the other relationships that I did have in my life, the other men that I did see, I learned from them the things that I definitely needed that weren't there, such as commitment. I needed a man that could easily commit. That was just some of my preferences as somebody that was also seeking this as a goal, I guess you could say. And those things came naturally to me. But just like the other stuff where I was kind of dabbling in being a businesswoman and being independent and not wanting to be with anybody for a time, that stuff was there as well. One of the things that I realised in becoming a wife, in becoming a mother, was that excuse me. I always knew I kind of wanted that, or at least I always knew I wanted a child, which I don't know where that came from. It just, again, for me, it was all quite subconscious. Like I was never felt like I was consciously making decisions. I would just say to people, I want to have a child by the time I'm 27 from a young age. Just stuff like that. Certain things I knew I wanted for myself. That was one of them that I ended up doing, achieving. And I think I found the reason why I wanted that. And this is something that I would recommend. But I've also got other things that I could share with you that aren't part of this. But some of this is going to touch on therapy now, specifically hypnotherapy. So if that's not for you, that's okay. There is some other things that I've done to become satisfied as a mother, as a wife, in, you know, a fairly traditional role, give or take, okay? And you might be saying, well, that's not what I want, okay? And that's fair enough. But to those of you that aren't sure, you're dabbling in both. You're being this independent, entrepreneurial woman, and you're also kind of longing for that closeness. You're longing for that, right? You're longing for that family that you build. You're longing for somebody that really gets you and loves you. And you're longing to maybe even have a child. Who knows? But what I wanted to say is that those things were happening through me naturally. And there was other things that weren't so easy for me, like, you know, making tons of money that I could buy my own house. That hasn't been something that just came naturally to me. So I'm sure some of you girls have got it down. But what I wanted to talk to you about with that is with this hypnotherapy that I've been doing with my husband, who is certified as a hypnotherapist. We've been doing something called spiritual regression therapy. And it includes a bunch of different things. Sometimes when we work together like this, it includes just my what happened yesterday stuff, right? So it's not so out there. It can be a type of talk therapy. Sometimes I can use visualization to get to the lesson behind certain things that have happened and process stuff, i.e. feel better about my circumstances and make better decisions moving forward. And then there's also the more in-depth stuff, which is where I feel mostly content with my day and my life in the moment, so I can go a bit deeper. And when we do that, that's when we go into things like past life therapy. There's also another one that crops up in there that's called Between Lives Regression. And that's where you see what happens, or what kind of the next stage is after you finish a life, what happens in between you having a life and beginning a new one. That's Between Lives. So I did a bit of that. I've been doing a bit of that. And the reason that that's relevant is because I figured out why in this life I've really wanted a close spouse. I've really wanted to have that family bond, and why it means so much to me, despite there being despite having gone through some depression with it, and some hard moments with it. Definitely when I became a mother, there was days where I felt very sad. Yeah, you could call it postpartum depression. But I found that what happened when I had a child, for example, is that a lot of stuff came to me about my past, when I was younger and things like that. So there was a big portal that opened when I had a child, and I had to look at other parts of myself that I hadn't looked at before, right? And luckily, in the modern day, we do have a bit more tools to do that. We do therapy, things like that, and I'm just one of those people that likes to look inward and find the storylines and go into the unconscious mind and read the news of that, let's say. And one of the things that I found, and that's come back a couple times, is what links to this independent feminist entrepreneurial movement of today. I had a couple lives where one, I was very well off. I think I'd inherited it though, and I was living a very comfortable life, and that had come through a lot of trials and tribulations surrounding being this independent woman, trying to make my own in life. But I became quite emotionally unwell because I compromised myself in a bunch of different ways, sexually, integrally. Those aren't things that I feel bad about anymore. I don't give myself shame over them. I don't dwell on them, and you shouldn't either, because we all learn from our mistakes. And sometimes those mistakes actually turn out to be seeds that we plant for a better outcome. So it's not always a loss. But what I found in the amalgamation of some of those lives is that I was missing one key ingredient in all of those lives, and it was that I never found, or at least in the ones that I've looked at, I didn't find a close connection with with a spouse, let's say. There was always either something to do, something to keep me busy that I did enjoy, work of some kind, or there was always other people to take care of things. But the part of me that had been through experiences in those lives that were difficult, and those times in general, there were times where the husband and wife didn't speak, or there were times where nobody was really sharing deep emotional stuff that's on the undercurrent. And I remember, you know, in one of those lives, I took my own life. And in the between lives, I looked at the plan for this life, and I saw that a big part of it was to reverse that, was to find a spouse, was to find a man that I loved and he loved me. So it wasn't just about labour in those lives, because I worked in those lives, or I was worked, like I inherited in one of those lives and didn't have to work at all, which was another thing altogether. But I remember in one of those lives, I would look at my then husband and I would see that he got to do, you know, the travelling and the earning money. And as a woman, because I was missing the family aspect, i.e. the closeness of having someone there that I love, that I could speak to and share my heart with and talk about vulnerable things, that being a missing ingredient led to some, I would say, of the mistakes that I made. I think as women, again, I can only really speak to my experience, but I think as women, one of the biggest things we want is to nurture and to be nurtured. And we can do this in all kinds of ways. But I guess what I learned in that life was that because I couldn't nurture closely with one other person, I struggled. Now, that's not to say that everyone will have that problem, that you will have that problem. That's not to say that. It's to say that there's certain things that we do to fill a void. And there's only so much of that void that we can fill until we decide that we want to start again and do things differently. And that's just one of the conclusions I've come to in doing some of this work with Eddie. And just in looking at the affairs of the modern day world and where we're at and where we're going. And trying to keep some of those traditional values alive whilst finding peace and living in the modern day world and being part of what's happening today that's changing. There's some things that I think ought to change, and there's some things that I think if they change so much, i.e. the nuclear family not being a thing anymore, could cause mass devastation. I don't think it'll get to that, but I'm just saying that's something that I think, because that's what I experienced in that life. I experienced a major void that I couldn't fill with money. I couldn't fill with other people. I could fill it a little bit with other people, but it wasn't. There's something about that bond, for me anyway, because I know it's not the same for everyone. Sometimes you can fill it with your friends, you can fill it with family, and sometimes you can't. And in this life, you know, I've also learned how to not be too dependent on family and to not need that recognition from them as well. So I'm learning just as much as you. My story that I'm sharing with you isn't to say that this is the perfect way. It's just, what can I teach you? What can you teach me? Because I'm sure what you can teach me is also completely valid and important as well. So I encourage you to share that. But essentially what I'm going for is that I have found peace in this lifestyle where I became a housewife, where I became a mother. And that wasn't without major trials and tribulations, because I did feel the din of it. It's not like I've had some easy breezy sailing with this, but what I will say is that once I got through those more dense and difficult feelings that are associated with taking my a more traditional role as a woman, you know, taking care of the house, planning, cooking, entertaining, nurturing, you know, things like that. Taking on some of those roles, I have found some peace. And in a way that I don't think I would have found if I had have let my fears of commitment and of being a housewife and those things, if I would have let those get in the way, I'm just not sure what it would be filled with. And I would want it to be filled with the thing that I know is part of our most core needs, which is that social aspect where you connect deeply, at least with one other. You can connect quite deeply with friends as well. So there is that. But that's not always attainable for everybody. Like just being close with one person is hard enough, in my experience. If you find another way to make it work, that's good for you. But like I said, I just wanted to share that story, mainly because there was resistance. There was resistance for me in that lifestyle. I did want to be independent. I did want to go my own way. But I think, and this is just a theory, but in the back of my mind, in the unconscious part of my mind, was this memory or some kind of like longing, this is something that I want. I do want to have a close spouse. I do want to have a child. And that's been there with me for a long time. Now, that might not be there for you right now, or have ever been. But what about in your next life? I would encourage you to look at your past and to look at your future. To be present in the now, I would definitely encourage you to do all those things. But ultimately, I just wanted to come on here and tell that story. Because it was quite a tragic life, I will say. Not because I was alone. I'm not trying to say, because I'm not trying to pin it on there that these things make you sad and depressed and want to kill yourself. I'm not trying to say that, because I don't think that is the case for everybody. But if you're like me in some way, and there is a resonance there, those might be things to think about. And I also just want to say that no matter what has happened in your past, you still deserve to be loved by somebody that can commit to you and that treats you respectfully and loves you. Sometimes we might get it in the back of our mind, like I did in that life, where I wasn't worthy enough to be loved because of some things that I did, some sexual deviant things that I did in that life. I wasn't worthy of being loved, so there was this lack of connection there with that person. And all things happen for a reason. Things do get better, and the timing of everything I do trust in. But I wanted to share more openly with you, because I could easily just not share this, and part of me is like, well, I want to share my book of life with you. I don't need to keep it all to myself. There is, I know, because I've been helped by others that have shared their book, that have shared their story, and I've been helped by that. And if it can help you to land on something, land on your lane a bit more solidly, then to me I've done the right thing, and it's worth it. So I think I'll probably leave it there. If you have some questions, let me know. I would love to talk more about this topic. Even though there is a deep longing there for connection that we all have, sometimes we have to go through the events that we go through. And so I'm not thinking that I can change you or that those events have to not happen. But I do think that personally I've made certain decisions better because I've listened to the wisdom of someone else's story and been like, oh, actually that's something that I want to apply to my life, And I've also realized not to swing the pendulum too much onto the extremes. I don't want to give up I mean, there is some sacrifice in the path that I'm talking about, you know, in becoming a wife and becoming a mother. There's some sacrifice in that, I will say. But if it's fulfilling a deep part of your piece, i.e., you just feel like you're in the right lane, it's worth it. And of course, we go on to live and to learn many other iterations. It's just that sometimes it can feel like it's a long stretch. And I think more open storytelling does need to happen so that we don't feel so impatient to get to the next thing, to miss out on some of the lessons that we're learning, or to make a mistake and choose a path that takes us the long way around, right? So those are some of the reasons that it's cool that we have this technology today to reach out to each other with. And I'm excited to see what we balance it with, you know? So I hope to speak about this some more with you, and let me know how I can aid you in this process. If you're wanting to hear some more of this story, anything like that, just let me know, and I'll tell you. So that's it from me for now, and I hope you're doing well, and I hope you keep on living well and finding the answers to the things that you are asking. So take care, and I will see you next time.